Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program. Amid talks of a transition to a federal form of government,
if these are unresolved, then how can we credibly unite around rule of law and human rights under an amended constitution?
House Speaker proposes a no-election scenario next year.
Kung gugustuhin talaga na matapos natin ito, kasi kailangan mo ng focus dyan eh.
But Senators and Malacañang oppose the move.
3/4 vote ang kailangan. Ibig sabihin, 7 lang ang bumoto laban doon, wala na. Hindi ko nakikita kung paano makakamit yung 3/4.
Also, the government's policy towards China.
I think we should hear it because the Senate should play a more active part in the formulation of the foreign policy of our country.
And the call to suspend the tax reform law.
We focus on what we can actually reform. Ano yung kaya nating reformahin, ano yung kaya nating gawin upang matulungan po yung ating mga kababayan.
Senator Bam Aquino joins us live. And later, not one, not two, but 12 moons were discovered in this planet. That's for today's In Focus. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. Senators cross party lines and reject the proposal of House Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez to cancel the 2019 midterm elections. Alvarez says if senators will not agree, Filipinos who support federalism can initiate a people's initiative to amend the Constitution. But what are the chances this will prosper? Also, we look at some of the controversial provisions of the draft Philippine Federal Constitution. Let's go straight to the source of the story. Senator Bam Aquino. Senator, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, Pinky.
All right, so Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez is looking at gathering enough support through a people's initiative to cancel the 2019 elections because he says the Senate is not amenable to a no-election scenario. First and foremost, could this actually work? Do you see problems with regards to this?
Well, unang-una, Pinky, I think many of us have crossed party lines and have agreed that we're not for a no-L scenario. Go-L kami, hindi kami no-L, no? Go elections, no? Bakit? Ang eleksyon, that's haligi yan ng ating demokrasya. It's a pillar of our democracy. Pag giniba mo yung haligi na yan, baka gumuho yung buong demokrasya natin, no? Hindi pwedeng tanggalin yung karapatan na yon sa ating mga taong bayan. At kung gusto talagang itulak itong charter change, wag dapat sagasaan yung ating May 2019 elections. No? So I think that's something many of us have already stated. And a lot of different groups have said, this is a red flag. No? If there's any move to postpone elections, you're bringing us closer to an autocracy or to a dictatorship. Kailangan mapanatili yung ating eleksyon. Now, even the CONCOM, no, yung Constitutional Committee headed by Chief Justice Puno, we're not in favor of postponing the 2019 elections. And this is something I've said to them in the first hearing. Now, we've had 5 since then. I said, may mga tao talaga who want to see genuine change and are pushing for a federal form or a change in our Constitution, who genuinely want to see real change. And there are those who want this because they want the 2019 elections postponed and they want to extend their terms. Kailangan ihiwalay natin yung mga hangarin na iyon, no? So this is something that we talked about on Tuesday in the last hearing na pag-usapan natin to. And the consensus of everybody in that hearing is that the May 2019 election should push through.
So panatag yung loob mo with regards to that?
Hindi pa rin. Siyempre, I think we're at a time in our country, especially after the decision of the Supreme Court on Chief Justice Sereno, and we talked about this before, nasa sitwasyon na po tayo na napakalaki ng uncertainty, no? Napakarami mga bagay-bagay na dapat naman hindi matuloy pero natuloy na rin, no? So I think it's important as early as now to take a firm stand and say the election should push through. Itong haligi ng ating demokrasya hindi pwedeng gabain.
Can you tell me sa Senado, ilan ho ba sa inyong bilang, in your count, would be for the elections or go-L to go elections, at ilan po ang no-L?
Well, I'll give you a better number on Monday, no, once we resume, and probably most likely there will be a caucus about the next steps towards the possible charter change. But right now, if you look at the media reports, I think
Yeah.
a number, if not majority, have already said na kailangan matuloy yung eleksyon.
In fact, let's play that. Dahil you have Senator Chis Escudero also talking about this, Senator J.V. Ejercito, Senator Ping Lacson.
I think Senator
as
Poe
we're-
already mentioned this as well.
And there you have it. You have senators crossing party lines. Let's play some of the statements made by the senators. Let's start with Senator Chis.
3/4 vote ang kailangan. Ibig sabihin, 7 lang ang bumoto laban doon, wala na. Hindi ko nakikita kung paano makakamit yung 3/4.
Senator Bam, na the Senate will fight this tooth and nail, di ba?
Yes.
Yun ang sinabi niya.
Well, maraming ifa-fight. No? There are different things on different fronts. One, I think, is the elections. No? And this is something that, kumbaga yan, that's a big red flag, really. If you're willing to postpone the elections, you're willing to do anything. And mahalaga na matuloy yung eleksyon natin sa susunod na taon. No? Pangalawa, yung voting jointly, voting separately.
I know because you brought that up during last Tuesday's hearing.
Yes.
Yun ang sinigurado mo. Ano bang siguro the sentiments of the members of the CONCOM regarding voting jointly or separately?
Well, again, all of them said we should vote separately. Ang kinakabahan lang ako is merong kulatilya na, but of course, the Supreme Court will decide on the matter. May ganong dinagdag, no, si Chief Justice Puno. But on its face, everybody practically said that we need to do this voting separately, which I agree is really the proper interpretation of the Constitution. Yung nakalagay ho kasi doon na Congress refers to the two houses. No? In fact, we call the lower chamber Congress, but actually it should be House of Representatives. No? So may dalawa pong miyembro ang Kongreso, ang House of Representatives at ang Senado, yung nakalagay doon Kongreso. So in no way can the House of Representatives do this on their own. Hindi talaga to pwede, and all of the legal luminaries agreed na hindi to pwede gawin, na sila lang.
In fact, matagal na hutong pinag-uusapan dahil if you talk to some of the framers of the 1987 Constitution, hindi ho ba lumabas, if I'm not mistaken, that nagkaroon kasi ng last-minute vote, what is supposed to be a unitary...
unicameral or bicameral.
Yeah, or bicameral. It shifted last minute, so there were certain provisions that siguro, possibly, which they agree, nagkulang sa jointly or separately siguro word that
Yes.
they had to include in that.
It's one of those things where you have to go to the intent.
Yeah.
And if the letter of the law is not clear, you usually go to the intent. But as we know, and in previous decisions of the Supreme Court, sometimes they go to the letter of the law, sometimes they go to the spirit of the law. Depende yan sa komposisyon ng Supreme Court, no?
Depende kung sino kausap mo.
Depende kung sino. Kaya that's why, sa totoo lang, Chief Justice Puno was saying, there are two schools of thought, though he does belong firmly into the school of thought that it needs to be done separately.
Okay. So let's
So
talk
that's
about
another one, no? Isa pa yan na kailangan pag-usapan. Of course, the third is the People's Initiative.
the People's Initiative, which I really want to go to, sir, because that's being floated now by Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez. Article 17 amendments or revisions. This is really important because if we try to study this, of course, me not being a lawyer, I try to understand this. There are three modes. You're talking about a con-as, a con, or a People's Initiative.
Yes.
Let's go to Article 17, doon na tayo sa Section 2. Here's what's important to understand for me, sir, because it says amendments to this Constitution may likewise be directly proposed by the people through initiative. I think the operative word here is amendment.
Exactly.
Kasi, sir, yung con-as tsaka yung con-con, amendment or revision
Exactly,
pwede.
yes.
So now let's go to the People's Initiative because this is what's being floated now. So what is an amendment? Is a no election a revision, or would that be an amendment?
Well, if you're going to push for the draft of the Constitutional Committee of Chief Justice Puno, that's a revision. No? If they're targeting just one or two lines there, it could be construed as an amendment. May decision na rin on this matter in the past na kapag sinasabi mong yung pagbabago ay isang sentence lang o isang provision lang, then it can be considered an amendment. Now, here's the thing, no? Meron kang People's Initiative, ibabangga mo yan dun sa surveys na lumabas from both Pulse and SWS saying that majority of Filipinos don't actually agree or don't actually want charter change, no? Kung di man nila ito gusto, hindi nila naiintindihan kung ano ba yung mga pagbabago na pinopropose, no? So,
Which is fair, ha?
which is fair. So
okay.
how can we have a true, if indeed this is what the people want, kailangan mo yan i-compare dun sa national surveys natin na nagsasabi na hindi talaga to gusto ng taong bayan, no? Now, of course, may mga percentages yan na kailangan mong maabot para matuloy yung People's Initiative. That's been tried in the past. Pero para sa akin, malinaw naman eh. Ang taong bayan, boboto niya yan, gugustuhin niya yan kung talagang makabubuti yan sa kanyang buhay. Pero kung yung mga pagbabago naman na pinopropose ay para sa mga politiko lamang. Because, Pinky, if you really look at the charter that's being proposed, majority of those changes are really political in nature. And ito siguro yung isang napaisip talaga ako after the hearing. No? Maganda naman kasi yung hangarin. Yung hangarin, and this is what the spokesperson of the Constitutional Committee had presented to all of us, ang hangarin, economic benefits. Yung hangarin, social justice, no? Magkaroon ng kaunlaran sa ating mga kababayan. Pero yung kanilang proposals naman, political in nature. So parang merong disjoint, no? Ang gusto nila, economic benefit, pero ang proposal nila, political changes. And unfortunately, some of the other resource persons, as well as some of the senators were thinking, kung economic yung gusto natin, bakit hindi economic yung changes na i-propose natin?
So make proposals for economic provisions to change certain economic provisions in the 1987
and those
Constitution.
political, the changes in the political system, yung pagbabago sa ating political system, may not necessarily lead us to better economic benefits for our people. Kapag sinabi mo, magiging federal na, magkakaroon na ng apat na Supreme Court per region, yung mga senators regional na, none of those assure any of us that our people will have more services, that our people will have better jobs, that prices will go down. Hindi siya tumutugma. And honestly, I think ito yung problema ng current administration. No? Maganda yung identification of the problem. Yung mga strategy, may sablay.
Okay, but...
No, for example, identification of the problem, drug addiction. Yung strategy goes overboard. Sumosobra naman sa war on drugs. Yung identified problem nila dito, economic reform. Pero political naman yung ginagawang strategy. Yung higher collection, train law, mali naman yung timing. Kasi nilagay ito nung mataas na yung presyo ng petrolyo, hindi nung mababa pa ito. So, all the time, nakikita natin, merong identification of the problem, pero yung mga strategies na binibigay, sumasablay talaga.
So the motive is good?
In this case, no, I cannot question the integrity and the motives of the people in the Constitutional Commission. Nandyan si Senator Nene Pimentel, si Chief Justice Puno. Justice Natura, people I look up to. I also consult with them a lot. Pero yung kanilang proposals na mga solusyon, hindi lumalanding dun sa kailangan ng taong bayan.
So that's where I wanted to go, because you're saying that the Philippine Federal Constitution promises or looks into a better economy for the Philippines. But much of the provisions are political in nature. So my question is, why would people with such integrity and credibility, such as the men you mentioned, would look into or put even a little bit of suspicion on the political nature of this Philippine Federal Constitution? Diba? Do you trust them? I'm assuming
ako
you do.
simple yung sagot dyan. One is that they're not perfect. Everyone proposes matters based on their background. Napansin in the hearing na yung karamihan sa kanila mga abogado. Nasaan dun yung mga negosyante? Nasaan yung kabataan? Kukonti lang yung mga kababaihan. No, there are sectors which are not represented in the CONCOM. No, which is why there's a group that's saying kailangan CONCON yung gawin natin at bumoto tayo ng mga tao who can truly represent the people. And there are some people who are saying they focus too much on the judiciary, they focus too much on the political side.
Yeah.
Yung business parang underrepresented dun sa grupo nila. Kaya makikita mo yung economic provisions kukonti rin lang.
Which, ang sinasabi mo nga, the intent of possibly shifting to a Philippine Federal Constitution would be to better the economy of the country.
Yes.
But sir, babalikan ko lang yung question ko kanina kasi it's important to find out what is the difference to me of an amendment and a revision. Can you answer that? Is a no election scenario, would that be an amendment or would that be a revision, sir?
Well, again, ang amendment kasi you're going piecemeal, pa isa-isa. I don't know exactly what the intention is in terms of what provision they would want to change. For the 2019 elections to be postponed, that requires a constitutional change, which means that if there is a people's initiative, kailangan pa rin mag-plebiscito niyan.
Right.
Hindi yan automatic.
Nakasulat naman doon.
Hindi naman yan automatic, no? So, can you imagine people basically, if they're just voting for that amendment, if it is accepted as an amendment, boboto sila kung dapat matuloy ang eleksyon o hindi. I think people, Filipino people, want to see elections because they want to be able to vote for their leaders.
All right, we'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Still to come, will the president respond to the call to suspend the tax reform law on his State of the Nation address? Senator Bam Aquino will still be with us after the break. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Senator Bam Aquino. Sir, you were talking about, of course, the Philippine Federal Constitution. Do you feel that somehow this is being fast-tracked? Minamadali ho ba to? Kasi would that be fair? If so, because matagal na ho naman talaga pinag-uusapan shifting to a federal form of government.
Well, let's put it this way, no? SONA is on Monday. We'll see from there kung minamadali o hindi. But
what do you
in any
feel right
case,
now?
Well, the Senate we've already taken a stand on the issue. We will not be railroaded. We will not fast-track it. We will give it the proper time and the proper effort. And this means you're also looking at national surveys and trying to see lumalanding na ba yung mga mensahe na to sa tao. Because we want, kapag nagplebisito na at kailangan bumoto ng tao tungkol dito sa bagong konstitusyon, alam nila kung ano yung pinagbobotohan nila. So, you know, until those numbers change and we see that people really understand and are clamoring for it, I think that would be, if ever, the best time to even discuss opening it up.
So,
at this point, it's all preparatory. Now, very soon, the Senate will have to make a decision on the matter. Do we need to continue the hearings regarding the charter change? Do we need to terminate the hearings and already propose a committee report? And this is, of course, the decision of Senator Pangilinan. And at that point, people will have to vote, no? Open or not open.
Dun lalabas.
And then eventually, CONCOM or CONAS.
Yeah.
Now, that's another decision.
So I take it, Senator, that a lot of it would be you looking into surveys such as Pulse Asia, for example,
SWS,
and
yes.
SWS on the sentiment of the people on Chacha. Dun ho kayo naniniwala?
Yes, no, you have to look at that. Siyempre, kung maniniwala ka lang sa mga politiko, parang iba rin yung perspective mo, di ba? Remember, the DILG and other government agencies have been doing the rounds about federalism for the past maybe 2 years. And yet, hindi pa rin nagbabago yung paningin ng tao tungkol dito. So, we need to give it the time. We need to be able, we need the help of the media, especially, no? To be able to really go into detail, explain natin sa tao ano ba yung ibig sabihin nito. Because ang takot ko dito, Pinky, babaguhin mo yung political structure, you go through this whole process, and you know, Secretary Pernia had already said that this might be disastrous to our economy. Specifically because if you're an investor at habang magulo pa yan, di ka pa mag-i-invest, di ba? Hihintayin mo na mag-stabilize yan. You go through that whole process, 3 taon, 5 taon bago mag-stabilize yan. In the end, ganun pa rin yung sitwasyon ng mga Pilipino.
Yeah.
Bakit pa natin to ginawa?
Yeah, I
no?
wanted to ask you about that because Secretary Pernia had made a statement regarding this at, I think it was presidential spokesperson Harry Roque who said that we have clarified the matter with the Secretary Pernia. Ano ho bang palagay niyo dyan?
Well, you have to talk to them, no? But you know, all the business, most of the business persons I've spoken to or business groups I've spoken to are worried about the change in the charter because alam nila kung may mag-i-invest at hindi sigurado yung walang political certainty, hindi
They
talaga
will hold
mag-i-invest.
off.
They will hold off talaga.
Okay.
So, yun palang malaking bagay na alam naman natin, yung investments equals jobs.
Okay.
So, it again goes back to the basic needs of our people, no? Prices, jobs, economic concerns. And ang tanong ko talaga dito, this whole charter change that we're doing, masasagot ba talaga yung mga issue nila? Palagi ko talaga hindi.
So will you
Yun yung
answer
issue dyan.
this? Will you answer this, sir? That are you careful about charter change because of who government is right now?
Yes. Kasama na rin yun. No? I think that's part of it. You know, one of the provisions that we talked about in length during the hearing was about the political dynasty provision. And everybody agreed. Those who were for it and those who were against it said, kung wala yung anti-political dynasty provision, ibasura na yung buong charter change na yan. Ibasura na yung federalism kung walang political dynasty provision. But here's the thing, Pinky, at ito yung medyo nagulat ako during the hearing. The current proposal of the CONCOM sa political dynasty is basically political dynasty for everybody except the president. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Medyo nagulat rin ako doon.
So, ano ibig sabihin nun,
Ang ginawa
Senator?
kasi nilang scheme, and this is something I found, you know, crazy, no, to be honest. Ang ginawa nilang scheme, second level of consanguinity, so mag-asawa, anak, grandfather, grandchildren, that's fine. Local, regional, national. So, kung regional or local, hindi ka pwedeng magkaanak. Pero pag national, allowed ka. Okay? But in their definition, the only nationally elected position is the president and the vice president who are running in tandem. So in short, yung anti-political dynasty provision na proposed ng CONCOM is political dynasty for everybody, but not the president.
And the vice president.
And the vice president, whoever that will be. Of course, hindi naman natin tinutukoy dito si President Duterte. It's prospective, but I found it very, very, irregular.
So,
that you would have an anti-political dynasty provision, but exempt the president.
Exempt the president
Yes.
and the vice president.
So in short, pwede ka magka-presidente, yung anak, senator, yung isang anak siguro, mayor, or at least meron kang dalawa, and then everybody else, basically bawal. So this was
Did they
something
explain
very
it to you,
peculiar. Hindi nila na-explain ng mabuti, to be honest. I was prodding them to look at the logic behind that. But honestly, I found their answer unsatisfactory. In fact, yung kausap natin doon, si Professor Tihanki,
Yeah.
he said that what he had wanted was a blanket anti-political dynasty provision.
Yeah.
But I guess he was outvoted, no? But ako naman, simple lang. Kung gagawin nyo na rin yan, at ipropose nyo na rin yan, itodo nyo na. Huwag na kayong magbigay ng exemption sa...
Lahatin nyo na.
Lahat ninyo, huwag na kayong magbigay ng exemption sa pinakamataas na posisyon, no? So that I found very, very irregular. Why you would exempt the president from an anti-political dynasty provision dito sa kanilang proposal?
But let's be fair, the president and the vice president, di ba?
Yes, running in tandem na yan.
Tandem yan. Which, ipapasok ko lang to, Senator, the transition committee. Yun nga po. The president already said that kung pwede tanggalin na siya by 2019. Let's very briefly listen to the soundbite of President Rodrigo Duterte regarding this.
Make me stop being president during the transition. So I urge Congress, ang kayong kipuno ngayon, committee, to make the final changes. Make me president only next year, 2019.
Would a statement like that, sir, allay fears of possible term extensions, yung mga ganun po?
Yes. Yes, to be honest, it would, no? But of course, hihintayin mo dyan yung final version. Like currently,
Bakit
a lot
final?
because it has to go through us.
Okay.
Yung binigay naman ng CONCOM, just to clarify to everybody, that's just
Dadaan naman sa-
recommendatory lang yan. At the end of the day, the good thing about it is, meron kang starting point, no? So right now, all the debates, all of the criticisms or support are centered around this draft because meron ka nang nakalagay sa papel. But in the end, magbabago pa yan. Now, if it does open up, and of course that in itself is already a question, no? Pero kung bubukas yan, kailangan ma-retain yung anti-political dynasty provision. People are saying, hindi yan papasa or hindi yan naabot sa final version, we'll see.
Yeah.
Itong binabanggit ni President Duterte na kailangan ng transition president or mga pagbabawal sa kanilang pagtakbo ulit, kung yan talagang gusto niya, kailangan masigurado natin na hindi talaga matanggal rin yan.
Kasi nga naman, we can talk about it at length for days or even months to come.
To be
the
honest,
final version will
Pinky,
be up to you guys.
right now, ang pag-uusapan talaga in the next few weeks is kung ibubukas yung proseso o hindi. A lot of groups have already said, opening it up is like opening up Pandora's box. You don't know ano yung lalabas dyan,
What this could lead to.
What it could lead to. And we've been very clear. We will not agree to a no-L scenario. We will not agree to any provision that will support dictatorship or authoritarianism. Alam mo, there's another thing that was pointed out by one of the justices, which was in the martial law provision, it's more or less retained, pero may dinagdag na batayan, and that's lawless violence, no? So right now it's invasion or rebellion, pero ngayon may dinagdag na lawless violence. And as we know, lawless violence is there's a very, very wide breadth, very broad to determine what's lawless violence. So kumbaga may dinagdag na provision dyan, no? Another one that, and I know we're running out of time, that Chief Justice Davide, pointed out, and he kept on repeating this, bakit dun sa definisyon ng ating teritoryo, hindi binanggit yung West Philippine Sea? Nakabanggit yung Philippine Rice, pero hindi binanggit yung West Philippine Sea. Was it omitted on purpose, or was that just an oversight?
Right.
I think if we are to have a new constitution, kailangan malinaw na yung posisyon natin sa West Philippine Sea.
Maraming dapat naman siguro, Senator, to be fair, maging malinaw because there are some questions regarding the 1987 Constitution. Sabihin po
Yes.
natin, voting jointly or separately, that was something already in the
You know,
past, and many other provisions in the
Pinky,
Constitution.
you can improve any law, any constitution, because they reflect the time that it was made,
Right.
and none of the framers are perfect. So you will always have room for improvement. But one of the professors yesterday from University of the Philippines, no, Political Science Department, he said something very interesting. Sabi niya, baka naman in your effort to improve, meron kang law of unintended consequences, mas mapalala pa yan. So you also have to look at how markets will react to this, how the country will react to this. Baka may mga provision na singit dyan, di mo naman pala alam, binukas na pala ang hindi inaasahang mga bagay. So you have to weigh all of that, no?
But that's really up to you guys to study this, sir.
Yes,
Hindi
and
ba?
in fact, that will probably come to a vote in the next few weeks.
All right. Thank you. Senator, as you sinabi niyo na po kanina, naubusan na tayo ng oras. Maraming salamat. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I wish we had more time because there's so much still to discuss. But during the break, we'll ask the Senator about the train law. What could happen when Congress resumes, no? This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Sir, maraming salamat po
Thank
sa
you,
inyo.
Pinky.
Coming up, 12 new moons were discovered in this planet. We'll tell you how and which one on today's In Focus.